Nintendo just literally bricked thousands of physical copies of Super Mario Wonder for Switch 2 users because apparently wondering if your copy is going to work tomorrow is all just part of the experience, folks. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Every copy now doubles as a Mario themed paperweight. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, Bowser's not the villain, it's Nintendo. So let's jump right into it and talk about exactly what happened and how you can get your copy of Super Mario Wonder to work once again. Can Nintendo go 24 hours without a controversy? This was published over on Games Radar. Quote, "This is another attack on physical media. Watchdog Group finds that Super Mario Bros. Wonder is suddenly unplayable on Switch 2 without an online update." Quote, "Nintendo crossed a line." Ladies and gentlemen, this sounds really bad, but there is a huge catch. So we're going to talk about that later in this video, because honestly, most of you guys are not going to have to wonder about whether or not Super Mario Bros. Wonder will work on your Switch 2. Most of you guys, probably I'll say 98% of you, are going to be just fine. So stay tuned, we'll talk about exactly what happened here, because this is a little bit clickbait. Physical media enthusiasts have been closely eyeing the Switch 2 as they try to figure out how viable the platform is as an entirely offline machine, and thus how easy it'll be to keep using it in not just the years but the decades to come. The latest Switch 2 firmware has a worrying caveat, as it's completely disabled the access to Super Mario Bros. Wonder without an additional patch. Now the source of this information comes from DoesItPlay, and if you guys don't know who DoesItPlay actually is, this is a website called DoesItPlay.org, and they track which games actually work offline on various different consoles. So it's basically, if you're wondering if the entirety of a game is on a disc, DoesItPlay probably already tested it for you, and you can check out their website DoesItPlay.org to learn more about whatever games that you care about. Okay, they are all about physical video game preservation. So these are the guys that figured out exactly what's going on here, and as you can see, this was posted yesterday while investigating a huge potential issue with the Switch 2 firmware on Mario Party Jamboree. We ran into something different. EU Super Mario Bros. Wonder lets you skip past the update prompt on firmware 20.1.1. However, if you have updated to firmware version 20.2.0, they say their US copy can't be launched without a game update. Okay, that's the big caveat, the game update. They go on to say, "We can confirm that Nintendo disabled offline playability on Switch 2 for Super Mario Bros. Wonder's card between firmware version 20.1.1 and current 20.2.0, updated one of our European Switches, and now the EU card of Wonder won't start either." So this is not just a US thing. Tested several other first-party titles, no change there. They follow up by saying, "Nintendo is indeed able to force game updates via system firmware. We came across another example. Physical Pikmin 3 can be booted and seemingly played on version 20.1.0 but was blocked from working off card with 20.1.1 as we initially reported here. Nintendo crossed a line. Our findings show they have the power to retroactively block legally bought physical games from working without updates, and they did so multiple times following the introduction of Trojan Horse quote game key card. This is another attack on physical media. People unironically defending online dependencies. Broaden your horizon. Yes, a small update might not be a big issue for you personally right now, until it is, until the update isn't available anymore, until an outage, until you are in a spot with bad/no internet, until it alters your game in a way you don't want. Right, remember, if they can do this and they can change these games physically retroactively with updates, they can do whatever they want. Okay, think speedrunning, expired licenses, censorship. There are good reasons why people don't want their games tampered with, and we haven't even touched the subject of preservation yet. There is no point parading around and telling people how little you care. Show some solidarity with those who rightfully do. And again, DoesItPlay is completely right here. Okay, now I wish that I could test this for you, but as I've learned today, my Switch automatically did a firmware update to 20.2.0, which is the firmware that they are referring to that has the problem. However, my copy of Super Mario Bros. Wonder is on version 1.0.2. If you guys want to know what version your Mario Bros. Wonder is on, you just boot it up, and on the screen where it says press L and R, like the very first, the title screen, right, it'll show you in the top right corner what version that you're actually running. And if you're running version 1.0.2, that means that you are running the most recent and latest version of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and version 1.0.2 came out right before the launch of the Switch 2. So if you had played this game around the time of Switch launch, then you've probably already had the game updated without you even knowing, and the 1.0.2 update is what will allow you to play this game offline once again. And I just confirmed this. I turned on my Switch 2, I turned off my Wi-Fi, like I just deleted my Wi-Fi connection, put this on airplane mode, and I'm still able to come in here and I am able to play Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Now let me just show you guys really quick what I'm talking about with the version number. The version number is going to be in the top corner right there, version 1.0.2. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but as I said, I'm currently on airplane mode and I'm able to boot up Mario Bros. Wonder. So this is why I said the headline was a little bit clickbait. Okay, it's a little bit misleading, because if you update your Switch to the latest firmware version and you're connected to the internet and you load up your Mario Bros. Wonder, it's automatically going to update to 1.0.2, and then problem solved. You're going to be able to play the game offline, right? So again, for 99% of you guys watching, this is not going to be a problem, because you're watching me on the internet and you probably connect your Switch to the internet, and if you do and those two things are true, then this problem is going to solve itself without you even knowing. This problem will only affect people who are committed to offline play, and players who are committed to offline play are going to be getting their hands on the latest firmware version through Super Mario Party Jamboree, but they're not going to be getting the update for Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and that's where the disconnect comes from. And that's why these offline preservationists are so upset, because they want to update their firmware on their Switch 2, because that's what's going to give them backwards compatibility. However, if they do this latest update, they lose access to their Mario Bros. Wonder, right? Which is kind of insane. Now hopefully in a future firmware version they solve this problem, but it seems really intentional here. It honestly does. So let's see what the article has to say here. Switch 1 backwards compatibility has been the biggest roadblock to offline Switch 2 players, since the feature required a firmware update, which up until this week you would have had to download. Donkey Kong Bonanza didn't include that firmware update on cart, but it turns out that the newly released Switch 2 edition of Super Mario Party Jamboree does, offering a way to get backwards compatibility without going offline. Unfortunately, it also breaks the option to play Mario Wonder offline. Nintendo Cross the Line DoesItPlay says in a follow-up post, today this issue won't matter for the vast majority of Switch 2 players. It's not that hard to find a Wi-Fi hotspot in 2025 after all, but these kinds of little compatibility issues are starting to become a nightmare on decades-old consoles with online features, and someday when the Switch 2 is itself a retro console, it's going to be a lot harder to access all its features that you might like. And that is the biggest problem with all of this, right? Today this is not a problem, and today Nintendo can still fix this and make this a better thing, right? They can make this not a problem, but the real problem is going to be in 20 years when they no longer support the Switch 2, when the servers go offline and you just bought yourself a sealed copy of Mario Party Wonder and you pop it into your brand new, you're having a nostalgia trip, right? You go online, you go on eBay, you buy a brand new copy of Mario Bros. Wonder, you buy a brand new Switch 2, and you do an unboxing for your YouTube video in 2045, right? And then you pop this in and you find out that the Switch 2 was manufactured with version 20.2.0, and you had a launch copy of Super Mario Bros. Wonder. GG, you can't play it. You go to connect to the servers, they're offline, and GG, you now have a bricked copy of Super Mario Wonder. You're not going to be able to ever play it ever again, right? That is the point that DoesItPlay is making here. In the future, things like this are going to cause headaches, and they're going to cause problems where you might not be able to play the games that you legally paid for, right? Isn't that super frustrating? Like, this is a physical game that I literally own, and under certain specific circumstances I would be unable to play this game because of an update that Nintendo pushed out, and my console updated overnight without me even knowing. So technically it was without my consent, although I did check all the privacy boxes in terms of service, so technically it was with my consent, but I'm just being a little bit dramatic here. So I just wanted to report on this to you guys so that way you know exactly what's going on. Technically this is clickbait for 99.9% of you guys, okay, but it is still definitely a concern for those that are worried about game preservation, and they're worried about the future of the console later down the line when these servers do go offline. And the fact that Nintendo was kind of overstepping a boundary here, where they launched the console and you were able to play this game, and then with a firmware update now you can't play this game unless you update the game as well, right? It's just kind of like, why don't you just leave my physical cartridges alone? Like, what are you doing? Like, why do you keep doing that? I don't understand this, right? Now it's possible that like this might be a compatibility thing where because the firmware changed on the Switch 2, maybe it technically would not actually be playable, and that's why there's a pop-up, right? I don't know much about hardware, firmware, and software and how, you know, that interplay there. I'm not like an engineer, so I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I do know that there is some hiccups with some of the backwards compatibility on the Switch 2, and so it's possible that with the latest firmware update it will improve some of the backwards compatibility for other games, but it just so happened to simultaneously break whatever was working with Super Mario Bros. Wonder, right? And so, you know, it's also possible that, you know, they fixed one thing, broke another thing, and then later down the line maybe they'll fix the thing with Super Mario Bros. Wonder, so that way you won't need to update it to 1.0.2. But guys, don't worry about this too much, because again, this is not going to be a problem for most of you right now, but in the future it could be. And another reason why this is getting people upset is because this is just yet another example of just simply not actually owning the games that we purchase, right? This is the latest chapter in the digital rights management saga, and everyone is kind of just sick of it, right? They want to be able to buy their game, and they want to know that what they got was in fact a video game on a cartridge, and that they will be able to play that game in perpetuity as long as the cartridge is in working condition and they have original hardware, right? Like that is sort of the expectation that most gamers have. And as it turns out, over the last couple of years, our sort of rights as consumers and the protections that we have been eroded just inch by inch, year after year. The temperature has been raised by 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree, and all of a sudden the frog is boiling in the pot, ladies and gentlemen. And it turns out that a lot of times what you're buying here when you're purchasing a physical game is not even a game. It is merely a license, even if there's actually content on the game, right? So in this instance, Mario Bros. Wonder is on the physical cartridge, and it is completely playable version 1.0.0, right? At least on the regular Switch. And so, you know, it begs the question, you know, if I update my firmware on my Switch 2 but I don't update my Mario Bros, why can't I play it? And if I can't, what rights do I have as a consumer, as somebody who legally purchased this game, right? It is advertised that Mario Bros. Wonder should work on the Switch 2. Backwards compatibility was one of the #1 features that they advertised with the Switch 2 when it first came out, right? That was like the big thing. You're gonna be able to play almost all your back catalog on day one, right? And so here we have an instance of like, you know, yes, this is a very specific niche one-off case, but like it's the first of what could be more, right? Like just because this is the first one doesn't mean that it's not worth talking about. Like, what are we supposed to do? Wait until there's 10 instances, or wait until there's 50 instances? Like, how many instances of this being a problem do we have to wait for before we start talking about it, right? And I think that's why people are starting to talk about it right now, even though it's niche, even though it doesn't really affect that many people, and in reality it won't be that big of an issue. It's just people are sick of feeling like, you know, what am I even holding, right? Like, what am I even buying? What is this? Is this a video game, or is this just a license? And if it's not a video game, why, like, what's the whole point, right? Like that's the problem. And I think that consumers are just sick of not having any rights in these instances, and just, you know, things like this where all of a sudden you wake up one day and a small handful of users is just not going to be able to play Mario Wonder without updating it, right? Which is just annoying, right? It's just simply annoying because it worked yesterday, it doesn't work today, and nothing's changed on my end. So what's going on here, right? And I think that is really like the core of this and the foundation of the frustration here. It's not really, it's more about the principle rather than the actual number of users affected, right? Everyone's kind of just like sick of having license agreements, and they're sick of all this legal stuff on the back end that just causes all these headaches later down the line. It's just like, why is this happening? What are you doing? Like, leave us alone. Just let us just give you our money for your video games. And just, why can't that just be the end of it? Why do you got to do all this other weird stuff months and years down the line? Like, it's just obnoxious. And so again, I just wanted to touch on that because I know that some people are going to say like, oh, this is a nothing burger, and it is what it is. And honestly, it is. This is truly a one-off nothing burger, right? But the core principle behind it, I can understand fully, and I can get behind that because I've got a whole shelf of physical media over here, and I don't want to lose that. And things like this do make me worried about the future of physical media. So anyway, guys, if you guys made it to the end of the video, drop a thumbs up on it. It really helps out this small channel a ton. It helps get this video out to the YouTube algorithm so other people might see it and let them know about what's going on with the Switch 2. And while you're down there, comment down below your thoughts on this. Is this a nothing burger? Does this matter? Do you not care about this at all? Or do you love your physical media and you care about game preservation and you don't want to see these types of practices being implemented by Nintendo so early on in the console's life cycle? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And while you're down there, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and click the bell to be notified the next time that we upload gaming news. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.